Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I'm your host, the Voice of Reason. The title of this video is going to be called How Soon We Forget. So I'd like to go back in history. I'd like to go back to around the April, May, June time frame. And I would like everyone to try and recall the status of the conflict and the way it looked in terms of the Ethiopian army, its Amhara allies, the Eritrean army was really occupying much of the Tigray region, doing some really heinous things at times. It was well reported in the media, and there was a lot of concern. And if we remember the map, the areas that were under the control of the Ethiopian military ran from Alamata, Korim, Mechu, Mekelle, and all the way up towards Adigrat, and then the Eritrean military operated huge areas from Adigrat all the way over to Shire. And I can remember watching one YouTube channel, and I can remember how there was talk of these repeated Ethiopian army offenses and Eritrean army operations into central Tigray, into the Tinbian. And I can remember specifically the reporting that was occurring was basically under the opinion that the war was coming to a conclusion. Well, I wouldn't say it was coming to a conclusion. That was not what was reported. As I recall, there was reporting that said that the Tigrayan forces were on their back foot, so to speak, and they weren't doing well. And they were really being localized in their mountainous areas in central Tigray. And very quickly, something occurred, something happened, and it was repeated occurrences that were actually happening. While many of these reports were talking about Ethiopian army operations, Eritrean army operations into the Tinbian against the Tigrayan Defense Forces in these mountainous regions, there was not a lot of real information coming out about what exactly was occurring. And unfortunately for the Ethiopian army and for the Eritrean army, it suffered catastrophic losses when it entered those areas of central Tigray, which would be south of Shire, south of Axum, Adigrat, and west of Mekelle. And we saw a breakdown in the force structure of the Ethiopian army where they took tremendous casualties. And there was then the operation by the Tigrayan Defense Forces. There was the Mothers of Tigray operation. There was Operation Alula. There was a host of these operations that took place, which finally caused the Ethiopian military to pull out of the Tigray region. Now, the Ethiopian military would say that it withdrew under its own accord, but the reality and the facts on the ground would tell you something different. It would tell you the proof would be the 7,000 prisoners of war that currently the Tigrayan Defense Forces hold. The Ethiopian military does not hold 7,000 Tigrayan Defense Force members in its custody. That's not what has occurred. That has occurred inside the Tigray region. And remember where we set back in May in terms of what the map looked like. Okay, all of this was red. It was identified as under the control of the Ethiopian military. Now, with that catastrophic defeat, the Ethiopian army fled south into the Amhara region, and now the Tigrayan Defense Forces have launched fairly significant operations deep into the Amhara region, and we're currently seeing engagements inside north of Dese. We're seeing engagements in the Afar region, and we're seeing engagements north of Gondar near Dabat and Dabark. So obviously the situation has changed dramatically. And again, I just want to kind of go back to and anyone can search these various channels who are reporting the conflict and go back and physically look at what was said. And obviously, if in hindsight, back in May, no one would have predicted the current status quo. No one would have. If you would have asked that other channel or some of the other channels that are reporting that in September of 2021 we would see Tigrayan Defense Forces in Dabat, we would see Tigrayan Defense Forces just outside of Dese. Well, that would have been a report of just a complete ridiculous. It would just been insane, and no one would have reported that. But that has what has happened, and that is where we currently are. And again, I just want to remember, no matter what is currently being reported, no one can see what is going to happen and what this situation is going to look like 2 months from now. The fact remains, what was being reported back in May and April in terms of a possible defeat by the Tigrayan Defense Forces, well, that did a complete 360-degree turn and or 180 turn, and it looks a lot different than what it did. So it's just in terms of what actually happened and what now is happening, really is in terms of when we look at this in terms of military history, it's going to be something for really the history books and military historians to study, because what this looked like in May, April of this year, and what it looks like now, again, completely different. And there's significant reporting that is being done, especially, well, I'll just say that it is not true. Right now, obviously, things are in flux, and there are continued operations going on. And I would say that if you look at the course of the conflict and how things have rapidly changed and shifted, stay tuned, because I think you're again going to see some things occur one way or another that may surprise you in the course of this conflict. I would say you really have to take certain things with a grain of salt. Remember, I was hearing some channels report that Weldia had fallen. I believe it was 2 weeks ago. I believe just a few days ago we were talking about Sokoto falling, and now we don't hear a lot about that for some reason. But anyway, I find that interesting. But again, just continue to watch the conflict. I will do my best in terms of trying to report what is fact, at the same time give you some predictions in terms of where I think this conflict is going. Do we have an end that is around the corner? No, unfortunately for both sides, that simply is not the case. This is going to quite possibly become a long conflict, and things are going to change and continue to change, sometimes rapidly, and then shift conditions at times as well. And what I mean by that, the conditions on the battlefield and who controls what at a certain period of time. This is not the type of warfare where you can say that there is a true front line running from the Afar region all the way across the basically the center of the Amhara region and up through up towards Dabat. That is not the way this conflict looks. There is just not one route of supply. One group is not cutting off the other group's supply by simply taking one area. If we look at some of the areas in question, for instance, Gashina is not a strategic target. It is a very small town that happens to have a crossroad, an intersection that allows movement north and east. But Gashina is a town that there would be problems defending. It is not mountainous near it. Obviously, if you go north, it changes a little bit, but Gashina sits on in a very flat area, and the strategic areas near Gashina are actually further to the north and not the town itself. The roads are there, but given the terrain, you can bypass those roads. So again, I would caution judgment if an area is lost or if an area is even retaken by either side. The end game with this is still fairly a ways off, and I would just say continue to observe, and we will continue to report. Have a great day, everybody.